When you think about what a tattoo is, everyone has a different version that's in their head. Whether if you're thinking of something small and simplistic, maybe you're thinking of something more dark and horrific. Maybe you're into entire cartoon cohesive bodysuits. Or, if you're like me, you like abstract bioorganic work. But no matter what kind of art you're into, there's a style that appeals to everyone. And that's the part I want to focus on today, is art. Tattoos weren't always seen as art by the general public. Only recently have we started to see tattoos be widely accepted in the public eye now. Nowadays, you'll see well-designed tattoos being worn by doctors, nurses, and even government workers. We have TV shows of varying quality showcasing tattoos to a wide audience. There are tattoos all over your social media feed. They're talked about by the most popular internet content creators, but it wasn't always like that. Most of you can think back to a time where the average perception of a tattoo was just a small little trinket you got stamped on you, either for a personal reason, to remember a special time in your life, or because maybe that alien on the wall over there was really fucking cool. The people who were heavily tattooed were usually military members or the outcasts of society. You always heard from people, "You'll never get a job with those tattoos," or "Why would you get that put on you forever?" It was generally seen as a reckless and unprofessional decision from the rest of society, and has been seen that way for as far back as the Roman Empire, where they would mark their criminals with tattoos to shame them from the rest of society. But today, tattooing is more widely accepted now than it's ever been. We see people of all walks of life and in all career fields with not just random little tattoos, but whole cohesive limbs of high quality artwork. And the craziest part of all is that it's only been a very recent accomplishment for the tattoo community, like within the past 20 to 30 years recent. But tattooing itself is a much older tradition than just a couple of decades. If you had to guess how far back tattooing goes, what would you say? Probably 50, 60, maybe even up to 100 years? Try 5,000. In reality, tattooing is actually one of the oldest human traditions. It has been around for thousands of years, spanning across the globe, with it coming in and out of popularity independently across every culture around the globe. The practice of making marks in the skin with some form of sharp object has been around for a majority of humanity, albeit in different forms and purposes than how we see it today. But it still stands the test of time. Much like agriculture or husbandry have remained staples in human evolution, tattooing has hung around on our tool belts as well. From past civilizations, we've seen archaeological proof of people being carbon dated all the way back to the year 3000 BC with primal tattoos. Take a look at Otzi the Iceman here. Although this looks nothing like we see today in tattooing, you can see that there are permanent marks located on very specific areas of the body. Historians say that these allude to the possibility of these tattoos being used as an early form of acupuncture for physical ailments, or even possibly some kind of tribalistic clan markings. And we've seen examples of this all across the globe pop up, from Egypt to North America to Polynesia and even Japan. Tattooing back then was mainly part of spiritualistic and cultural practices and rituals. Tattooing has evolved with us and has been around for self-expression or for practicality in our history as a species for as long back as we can think. But if you're not fascinated by those early examples of tattooing being a timeless human tradition, then let's look at the rapid growth of the modern tattoo as we know it today. Today, we see thousands of tattoos ranging in all types of styles being made every single day, a majority of which are high-quality designs made specifically for your client's body proportions with as much or as little backstory as they want it to include. But let's look back even just 40 years. The average tattoo is not to the same quality and standard that tattoo artists hold themselves up to today. Not to say that there weren't amazing tattooers out there trying to push the game forward, but the average tattoo then was just a stamp of a design on a body with no consideration to technical accuracy or safety precautions. They were mostly just flash designs reused over and over, worn by the outcasts of society. And the stigma against tattooers was to the same standard, being that the tattooer was just some criminal or outcast blasting some tats on a dude. But it wasn't all criminals and sketchy people back then. There were legitimate artists and enthusiasts starting to use these tools to make quality works of art. They were taking the time to study the tools and the effects that they had when they came in contact with the skin. Taking the time to document and research how to perform a tattoo in the least scarring ways. The Wild West days of little standardization on how to tattoo were starting to get phased out, along with that get 'em in, get 'em out mentality you've heard of. Gone were the days of there being 1 to 3 shops per large metropolitan city. And in came the artistic mentality, pushing for the next tattoo you do to be the best possible work being produced. Artists started to take over this once tinkerer's hobby. And they started asking questions. They started asking the question, why? Why does this tattoo look better than that one? Why is my process more efficient when I hold the machine this way compared to how they're doing it? Why does this technique work better than that one? Why do we do things the way we do? And this sparked the change in industry into what we see it today. We had artists come into the tattoo world with art degrees and lots of classical training in art skills, and they started treating it like any other art form, striving to make the best art they can with the materials at hand. And back in those days, it was slim pickings. The industry was so new in the modern era that no one was mass producing equipment like they do today. Tattooers had to make their own needles by hand from soldering etymology bug pins together. They made machines based off of Thomas Edison's electric pen and Johann Philipp Wagner's electric doorbell blueprints to create the coil machine that we see today. As people started asking why, the industry grew to accommodate the discoveries that came along with it. Companies started popping up and making revolutionary equipment to increase the comfort and ergonomics of the artist. Ink companies started popping up and making standardized formulas with consistent results in the skin. Artists were changing the entire way we even thought about how a tattoo sits on a person. And most importantly, they were sharing it too. There were books, instructional DVDs, and seminars popping up left and right, aiming to educate their fellow artists about how to improve at this complex art form that no one knew a lot about. The professionals in each style were taking the time to dissect their process into principles and followable steps, streamlining the process to share with their fellow artists. And if you think this was all in some far-off distant land, way too long to even care about, then you're wrong. This was all accomplished within the past 30 to 40 years. The people who spent their entire career to revolutionize the industry into the modern Goliath that tattooing is today are still around and running strong to this day. They're still working hard to push the industry to a new standard while putting out extraordinary tattoos and knowledge that they've gained over the decades. And I think that's the part that brings everything into perspective here. Newer artists getting into the industry today should take the time to learn about how quickly this industry has boomed and have an appreciation for those who have dedicated their lives to make it such a fun and rewarding career path, let alone a career at all. So why does tattoo history matter? A, because it gives you a better understanding of how this art form works and a greater appreciation of how truly uniquely human and experienced tattooing is. But B, it's because the people who have spent their entire career pushing for tattooing to become a professional, legitimate industry are still active in the community to this day. They continue to push artists to try their hardest and to make the next tattoo the best possible one you do. Tattooing has evolved at such a rapid rate that it's currently America's 6th fastest growing industry as of 2022, rising to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, seeing hundreds of newcomers a day to the scene. So, if you're to take anything away from this video as an artist or just a tat-curious person in the world, take a moment to appreciate those who have paved the path for us to thrive in this modern era of tattooing, and continue to do what you can to help push the stigma of tattooing into a more positive one. Take a moment to research the right artist for you the next time you're wanting a specific tattoo. Take a moment to research your local tattoo history and see who it is that made it possible for you to do what you do today in your city. Tattoo history was almost lost at many points in the past due to the constant negative stigma that gets pegged onto tattooing, and it's still not even fully documented 100% to this day. So let's continue to push for an understanding and appreciation of how this industry has evolved over the years and how great tattooing really is. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. And if you learned something new, or maybe even heard me talk about something that you might want to learn a bit more about, I'll leave a couple of resources down below in the description of some really great websites that I found helping to document tattoo history. And be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos about tattoo history and the importance of tattooing, because it's something I continue to plan on doing and have a huge passion for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.